Joining us now, former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, retired four-star Navy Admiral James Stav. He is Chief International Analyst for NBC News. Admiral, so great to see you this morning. Let's start with that town.
Sure.
Where Russia is really focusing a lot of its efforts. There's Ukraine's decision to battle for Bakhmut, to expend a lot of resources. There was a controversial one. Even many members of the U.S. leadership weren't sure that was the right idea. Remind viewers where you stood on that, and do you think this battle could play a similar role?
Bakhmut became kind of like the Alamo in American history. It achieved kind of iconic status. So as a result of that, I think the Ukrainian decision, Jonathan, to really keep that pressure on was smart. This current go-round, what the Russians are doing, I don't think is smart generalship. The Russian generals have consistently misfired, fumbled, dropped the ball, and I think this is an example of them putting too many resources against too small a prize.
So where do you think things stand right now? I mean, the Ukraine conflict has sort of faded from the headlines as we've focused on what's happening in the Middle East. Also, the fighting itself is sort of frozen. There hasn't been much progress made on either side, and now winter approaches. Where do you see these next few months going?
Well, a third combatant is about to enter the battlefield. Russia, Ukraine, an old man winter is about to arrive. And that will further freeze the frame, not to go too far with our freezing metaphors. So what you'll see is more static on the battlefield, Jonathan. Not much will happen through the winter months. And then the advent of the F-16 fighters, which will be hitting the battlefield in March. I think that's the next big muscle movement in this conflict. So bottom line, don't look for a lot of motion right now. This thing is starting to look like the Korean War with a frozen line that may become a line of demarcation. We'll see.
But with time, if it's going to be static for a few months,
right,
time seems to be on Putin's side, no? Because he's certainly eyeing the 2024 U.S. presidential election. He announced this week a massive hike in defense spending, about 30% of all fiscal expenditures going towards the military in the year ahead.
Yeah.
So if we are in a frozen conflict, and you've been Ukraine certainly has done a remarkable job repelling Russia's invasion. I know you've been very impressed by what they've done. Are you still optimistic, though, about the long-term arc of this war?
I am as follows. Again, to hold on to that Korean War metaphor for a moment, if this thing freezes into two sides along a line of demarcation, you open the door at that point for negotiation. Putin can't overwhelm the Ukrainians. And as a result, you could see a case over time where Ukraine achieves its real goal, which is to come into the European Union, to come into NATO. I could see that happening. But you are correct, Jonathan. Putin will wait to play that card of the U.S. election. He's hoping to see Donald Trump come in, who is not a supporter of Ukraine and not a supporter of NATO.
All right, retired four-star Navy Admiral James Stav. We'll see you again on Morning Joe shortly to discuss the overnight developments in Israel and the Gaza Strip. We wanted to make sure we spent some time on Ukraine here this morning. Thank you for joining us.